Listen and subscribe to The Table of Truth on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts.
And granted, there was a lot of theories out there based on the trailers, what was going to happen. I haven't seen it, but I had a theory based off a What If episode that the Doctor Strange that we saw was the evil Doctor Strange from What If, because he was a little too nonchalant about loosey-goosey with the spells.
Yep.
But as you say that...
So, wait, hold on. So, as Cam just threw that theory out, welcome everybody to the Table of Truth. This is your man, Cam. As you can see, we are already in the mud. So we had to pause, because if not, I got to record the intro. Yeah. So, as with me, as always, is...
The other Black Cam, Doc Strange, to those that ain't knowing my real name, but also go by the Woke Hokage.
As well as
the artist formerly known as Josh.
And bringing it up and rounding it up is
the professor currently known as D.
Nice. So once again, before you start, spoilers abound. We all three out of the four of us have watched it. Cam is joining us as well. He hasn't watched it, but he had his own theories. He said he wanted to stick around. He's not worried about the spoilers. So we're going to be explaining what we thought about it to him and you, the audience. Hopefully you've watched it. If you have not, press stop now to go watch it and then come back and join us later. But yeah, so as Cam was saying, Cam have his own theories of like just from the trailers and stuff like that. The one thing I'll say out the jump is I think they did a really good job of highlighting things in the trailers so that when you watched it, you knew it was there, but you were wondering how they were going to do it. And I think the payoff of how they did it was done really well as a whole, from like just watching the trailer to actually watching the movie. Because again, we knew the rumors, we knew the theories and all that, but then seeing how they kind of unplayed it, they did a really good job.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
What if gave us some insight about and Loki gave us some insight about the timeline splitting. Doctor Strange gave us some insight. So they're all kind of setting us up for this one particular part in this movie. And,
so just cool. An overall plot point basically was, we all know from the last movie, Mysterio basically outed Peter Parker. He's kind of on the run. He's kind of not necessarily on the run, but everybody knows he's Parker. And so like everyone's kind of following him around, that kind of stuff. There was a really good moment with Hannibal Buress. He came back from the first movie, which I was surprised because like he kind of fucked up on himself back then. But basically everyone's split into two camps. Either put Parker's a murderer and kill Mysterio, or they believe him and he's a hero. So that's pretty much how Parker's been rocking right now. And so like he's literally the most famous person on the planet now. So he can't be like, he swings somewhere, he's on, there's automatically cameras, there's automatically a news crew. And so he's trying to figure out how he can do that. And what ends up happening basically is he gets rejected from college. All his homies get rejected from college because he's Spider-Man and everyone knows that. So he's just a reckless kid. And now his consequences are starting to happen. And so he's trying to figure out how he can get out of this. And that's how he goes to Strange. And that's when the movie actually really starts.
Yeah. He got to learn they can't double dip into that hero life and the college kid life. You got to pick one or the other, because otherwise the world going to decide for you.
Basically.
And that's what happened.
Yeah. So, and then, that kind of gives you the groundwork of what happened. But anyways, off of a botched spell, villains from other multiverses come into this verse, and Strange is like, once again, Parker, I forgot that you're a kid and you just fucked up, so now you gotta fix it. so now Parker and his Scooby team is basically trying to track down all the villains and kind of bring them in, and that's kind of like that's the crux of the movie, basically.
Yeah, it's a very Spider-Man plot.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this trilogy has been very good at, is giving Spider-Man plots and fitting his rogues gallery into that dynamic, as well as the paradigm of the MCU overall. Really well. Like, this is the culmination of a coming of age story. So having that moment of Doctor Strange out loud saying what is true, which is I often, all the things we've been through together, I forget that you're still just a kid, and so you're hounded by that childlike insecurity and indecisiveness about everything you do, and so that came out not only in sort of the serious moments but also the humor as well, as as he teams with Strange, and the two of them try to figure it out. Well, team is the wrong word, because that's not even how it comes about or it even plays out. So
yeah, they do a good job of like taking Strange off the board, so it's not a team up. And so like he I think for this one he really got to do he did the heavy lifting himself. And I think that part was really cool. There was good moments with Ned and great moments with MJ and stuff like that. And all the villains reprised their roles, which was pretty good. I was actually surprised. I didn't think that was actually going to happen. And they give each villain gets a nice little moment of their shine. The ever moving hairline is JB Fox did a great job. he was hilarious. The whole thing, all his comic bits were dope. Like, he was less CG, more him, so that was good.
Yeah.
They did a really good job with just balancing all the villains that they had, and even with Doc Ock and stuff like that. Like, they showed that part in the trailer where like they all make fun of his name, which is actually pretty funny if you think about it. Like some high school kids, and he's saying these three words as his name. They're like, "What? Is that real?"
But also just that sort of generational divide. If you're a comic book fan, sitting there seeing that the kids of this generation, the actors playing some of the favorite characters, are laughing at the name Otto Octavius. We all grew up thinking like, "Oh, that's the villain. That's super. Yep. That's Doc Ock." We never. Mm-hmm. Some of us, I'm gonna say never. Some of us have probably said, "Oh, it's silly," in the back of our minds. But again, he's always been Doc Ock.
Yep.
But for a new generation, that's kind of like, that's the villain name. Like they grew up with these awesome, more cool villain names, and now all of a sudden you have Doc Ock. So yeah, that was a really good moment. Really good.
Yeah, they did a good job. And then I like when how the villains knew each other's backstory too. And so if they were from the same universe, they can go back and forth. But wait a minute, aren't you dead? So I thought you got captured. And they all kind of had those moments where like each of those villains in those universes know who each other are, and like kind of like a little bit of their backstory, whatever.
I mean, I think the thing that worked that worked really well is, for a movie that's not usually an ensemble movie, it really balanced it. Like you say, everybody got their shine, but more importantly, like, it was just really well balanced in terms of like, nobody got more screen time than anybody else.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel crowded. As crowded as it was, it didn't feel crowded.
Yeah. And nobody outshined the star.
No.
Holland. And I think that was partially given all credit to him as a performer. He really did, I think, step up to show that while there were other Spider-Mans, I am Spider-Man. I am Peter Parker.
And not just that, but just like the heavy hitters that are in this movie. Alfred Molina is not a slouch. Jamie Foxx is not a slouch.
I
mean, those guys could suck up all the air in a room, but and not in a conceited way. They're heavy hitters. They're stars.
Oh, absolutely. He handled himself on that. I just meant in terms of the debate of who portrayed Peter Parker better, because that debate is strong, because there were 3 Peter Parkers in almost the same generation, even though obviously Tobey Maguire is the oldest and probably from more of the Gen X, and Andrew Garfield is more of the millennial, whereas Tom Holland kind of leans more to Gen Z generation. It was interesting seeing that, and I think Tom Holland showed that he was more of the character than in his performance than they were. I think they were great, but I think Tom Holland, even in his acting, his emotion didn't feel as over the top as
no, that's a good point. That's a good
Tobey
point.
Maguire's did, and then as forced as Andrew Garfield's felt, because there were times where Andrew Garfield was very in Amazing Spider-Man. We're just going to talk about the Amazing Spider-Man. Was kind of turned up on the very sarcastic, version of Peter Parker, quick-witted. And then when he had to come to the emotional part, it just felt very, very forced and not natural. Whereas Tom Holland and his emotion for all the things that Peter Parker loses over time and has lost, you feel that through his performance a lot more than with the other two.
Yeah, and I think the original, earlier on, someone had a good point that told me they were like, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man is kind of like the 60s, 70s one. He's a little dopey. He's kind of moping around all the time. Married MJ this, MJ that. Garfield is more like the 90s one, which is quippy, all the sarcasm, all that. And then Holland is definitely Ultimate Spider-Man, this version, the kind of like OG Golly Willikers type Spidey. And it worked. And so seeing all three of them in the same space actually was kind of fun. Because then you can kind of see the differences. And I'm a 90s Spider-Man, so I like the quippy, I like that stuff. But you definitely said Holland has the best balance of it all. Where I think even Garfield, I like that they did a really good meta in terms of making fun of Garfield and Toby in little pieces throughout the whole thing. And so Garfield just acknowledging that he's the lame Spider-Man was just hilarious.
Hold on, let me say this. I actually like Garfield Spider-Man.
Oh, me too.
I think he's the Val Kilmer Batman to their Spider-Man. If that makes any sense.
That makes a lot of sense. That's a very good comparison.
Yep. I'm with that because I like Amazing Spider-Man. The movie is to me better than Spider-Man 1, the Tobey one. And I say that because on rewatch, you can I just tell people about that. But I think Garfield hit all the corners of the Spider-Man that I grew up with, which is that quippy, funny, sarcastic, almost with a smirk all the time. But you're right. Every time he had to be serious a little bit more, it was a lot. It was harder for him to kind of pull that in.
Yeah. So I think Andrew Garfield nails Peter.
Yeah.
And I think agree. Tom Holland is probably the better balance of the bunch, whereas I think the first dude, Tobey Maguire, I think he might have been a better, not a better Spider-Man, but at least a really good Spider-Man. His Peter was kind of, but in Spider-Man 2, in Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2, where he fights Dr. Octopus, I feel like that was probably the best balance of the two of all the movies.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Yeah. So in the Spider-Verse, who played the alternate Spider-Man? Wasn't that Jake Gyllenhaal?
It was in Spider-Verse. It was
your boy from
Chris Pine
from It's Always Sunny.
Okay, the one that was lazy Spider-Man. That didn't.
Oh yeah. He was. Okay. That was the dude from Single Girl. Damn. What's Jake something. It's not Jake Gyllenhaal, but it's another Jake. Yeah.
I actually like his version of Spider-Man. Cynical Peter Parker.
Yep. He knows the stuff. Yeah, it was good. Yeah. It was good. And I think that was the coolest part about this. And even the way they introduced the other two Spideys, and it felt it was cool. They they challenged him. They're like, wait, how do we know you're Parker? And then hey, crawl on the wall or something. And Garfield's like, I'm not crawling on the wall. Why would I do that for?
Jake Johnson. It was perfect for Andrew Garfield's Peter, in the way he responds to things. And and that was great. The moment that made me laugh was the when Garfield's Peter, when they're getting ready to go into battle, and he says, ask Tobey Maguire, he's like, so are you planning on going into battle dressed like a youth minister, or did you bring your suit? Because he shows up
straight up like Gap commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Like the sweater and the t-shirt and the khaki pants and the little members on the jacket.
Dude. Yeah, I would say that moment, and then Now, in the film, you know, all three Peters are working on a solution. So they're in the lab. They're all being sciencey and stuff, which is also a really, really dope moment. And then fake Genki, aka Ned, goes up to Garfield and he's kind of like, "Yo, man, so do you have a best friend in your verse?" And then Garfield's like, "Yeah, I have a best friend." And then he turned into a supervillain, and then he tried to kill me, and then he died.
Oh, actually, that was Maguire.
Oh, yo, you're right. It was Maguire.
Right. Because he caps it off with, it was kind of sad. In that very Tobey Maguire way, he keep working, and he's like, it's kind of sad actually.
and then fake Genki, aka Ned, goes up to Holland. He's like, "Hey, I promise if I get superpowers, I will turn into a supervillain and try to kill you." It's a good moment. It's a good moment.
Yeah, it was a good moment. And they just play off of each other well.
Also, I would say the chemistry between Zendaya and freaking Tom Holland was like really, really, really good.
Oh yeah, they turned up. It
just
turned up.
It was believable.
I'm starting to see a theme with Zendaya and like skinny white guys in movies.
Not lost on me.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
She did a good job. They both had like dope chemistry and it worked out.
They gave her a lot more scenery to show up.
Yeah, 100%. Also, same with freaking Jon Favreau and Marissa Tomei. That shit was great.
Oh, as the veterans and veteran character actors, no less. Like,
they killed it.
They just did such a great job.
Yeah, killed it.
Let me ask you this from somebody who hasn't seen it. Two things that's been bugging me. Please tell me they didn't bring Iron Man back in any shape, form, or fashion in this movie.
Nope.
And is there
No.
Okay, because timeline. So I had to ask. And do we get any Eddie Brock? And if it is Eddie Brock in this iteration of Spider-Man, is the one played by the current actor who's playing Venom?
So they do a good job. The one thing I would say for this one is their post-credit scenes hit well. So at the end of the movie, they get to a resolution, and essentially, so for people that read the comic books, this is basically One More Day, a storyline in the comics where basically in the comics, Aunt May dies, and then Parker goes to Mephisto and says, "Hey, I can't let her die," and he's like, "All right, I can help you, but then other things aren't going to happen. People are going to forget you. Like you're going to forget Mary Jane's not going to know you. You know, people aren't going to know that you can still be Spider-Man. You're the only one that knows, but everyone else is going to forget." And that's pretty much the bulk of this story. So with this resolution, Strange casts a spell. Everyone forgets that he's Spider-Man, and he everyone's going back to their respective universes. All the Sinister Six leaves. Roll credits. And then you cut to a scene in San Francisco, and you have Tom Hardy, and Tom Hardy's talking to the Mexican cat from Ted Lasso. Shout out to all the Ted Lasso fans out there. And it basically Ted Hardy's been at the bar the whole time talking to this bartender about all this, the universe of superheroes. And he's like, whoa, wait. So there was an alien, like a purple dude? And so it was pretty funny. So again, him and Venom are having this inner dialogue about, doing stuff and, whatever. And again, Venom the movies, not great, but Tom Hardy and as Venom and Eddie Brock
make it work.
Yeah, they make it work really well. So, so as he's getting learning this stuff, and then all of a sudden Tom Hardy actually starts to fade away too because he's going back to his universe. And then the last scene is a little speck of black goo on the table, and it moves, therefore leaving the little piece of the symbiote in Tom Holland's universe.
Yeah.
Pretty smart. It was a pretty good nod, and they did a good. To me, I was like, that's a perfect way to do it because therefore you can either A, have Tom Hardy come back play that character, or B, recast it. It makes sense. It doesn't have to do much, and it was just very simple and subtle, and they did a really, really good job.
Yeah, and I was very much from a storytelling perspective, wondering if that was an accident as a result of the ripping of or tearing the molecules and return them into their normal space and time, or if Venom did that on purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
He was very much obsessed with Spider-Man, and he wanted to go and talk to Spider-Man.
Yep.
So
exactly.
When it happened, I was like, oh man, a piece of him got ripped off, but then you didn't see him transforming, or maybe he was about to transform. I don't know, but I would be curious to see if that was something that he did on his own, or the symbiote did on its own.
And I think they did a good job with like kind of just like laying that like true Easter egg, and I thought that was dope. The other part to be fried is we got a Diesel Green Goblin, like.
The Green Goblin.
Like Diesel, like, and so Green Goblin.
Wait, Diesel Green Goblin on like steroids?
I mean, in terms of
in terms of the performance,
and also
like
So say that again, Josh.
I said you got Diesel performance and the costume. You got an actual Green Goblin costume minus the green face.
Yeah.
But he's basically in a shredded up hoodie that resembles comic book Green Goblin.
Yeah, and it worked well. And I think they, by introducing Norman Osborn with that, dual personality of like the nice guy and the crazy one, and so the nice guy kind of befriends Holland and May, and then the real one shows up and whoops freaking Holland's ass. Straight up.
I got flashbacks to the Raimi Spider-Man when he was whipping Maguire.
Yeah, exactly. And Defoe was having the time of his life. He was just like, and it was really done well. And also, Holland's Parker hasn't really faced that level of a villain yet.
No,
and so who is like 100% crazy. There's no saving him. He's legit whooping your ass to cause chaos. Like that's his whole point.
And he's murderous. Like he's completely Vulture wasn't a killer, wasn't a murderer. He was just a thief and a petty thief. And exactly.
I don't want to simplify Vulture that way. I feel like he's a villain that had a purpose, like in the sense that it was honorable what he was doing, but like in his heart, he only did what he had to do because he was forced to do it. And you're right.
Oh, absolutely. But it absolutely 100%. It just didn't take away from what he did in terms of achieve that. And same with Mysterio. But here you have, to Cam's point, Green Goblin, where this is a menacing threat. Like this is a person who literally murders for fun.
Yep.
And you see that in Holland's Spider-Man, like you said, had never encountered that type of malevolence.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't even say that Thanos was malevolent. He was a very specific type of malevolence.
Yeah.
Pragmatic,
more capricious and callous than he was malevolent.
And so in this one, so now you have Holland's Parker facing someone that legit is crazy and enjoys the fight, enjoys the menace, the destroying of things, the destruction. And Holland's kind of like he's taken aback by it because before, everyone, I gotta save everyone. I want to make sure everyone's good. Like they're bad, but they're not that bad. We can figure out a way to save them. And then Goblin's like, nah, man.
Yeah, and
completely insane is the phrase we want to use.
Yes,
right. All the villains still had their same motivations, only in a different context. So for Max, it was about that feeling of absolute power or having control where he didn't previously. For Sandman, it was still about being able to protect his daughter and on a fundamental level, survival. Kurt Connor's the same thing, believing that the only path forward is for humans to be transformed into reptilian, amphibious creatures. and the same with Doc Ock, still looking for the power of the sun in the palm of his hand, which I love the moment where he's holding the arc reactor after, and that they acknowledge that in this universe, because of the movies taking place after those movies, real life time wise, the technology is far more advanced in Holland Spider-Man's universe than in those movies universe. So that
was a good nod.
Details of the script were solidly like just putting little super glue on all the potential cracks. It's like here, that. So Jamie Foxx did look like kind of Festus with the teeth in the. Here's how we explain that.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. They did a good job of doing that, and I think even with each Spider-Man too, where the part where Tobey Maguire shoots his webs out of his wrist, and everyone was like, "Yo, what?"
That was great.
They're like, "Wait, so how does that even work? Like, do you make that in your body or what?"
Yeah, that was great.
And so, and then also too, when they're starting to see the differences between the Peters and how each of them have similar things, where like someone lost, someone did some other stuff, and so I like that they try to keep that balance where it's like, yo, we're all Peter Parker, but we all have differences, but we still dealt with the same things.
Yeah,
still dealt with loss, still trying to save everybody, still trying to be a better person, and I thought that organization was dope.
Yeah, and because Holland's Peter was definitely about to cross that moral event.
Oh man, yeah,
like some dark
about to go in. Yeah, he's like, man,
he was being a real Queens kid on some. Yo, you dead in my aunt. You gonna have to go.
You got to go. Like, nah, the rest of them they could go back and do it, but Goblin. Nah, Goblin. Me and Goblin got beef. That's deep.
Nah, that was good. And then also too, it was funny because a good moment was so the resolution of the movie. Everyone forgets. Everyone forgets that he's Spider-Man, so things can go back to quote unquote normal. So everyone forgets. Doc Strange forgets. Happy forgets. All of them. So now Peter's literally on his own. No gadgets, just him, his powers, in a regular old suit. And it was cool because that was kind of a nod to kind of like the loser Parker that happens for a good chunk of years, where he's just kind of by himself, just figuring out, making his own web fluid. Like he has no team behind him. And like, the Holland's Parker has like Stark technology. He's had all these gadgets, and now he's back to just being square one.
Yeah.
And he goes to find MJ, where she's working at the same donut shop that she works at. And as he's talking to her, he almost wants to tell her everything. And this is who I am, blah, 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 blah. And then I like the moment when he walks in and he sees her, and then fake Genki, aka Ned, comes in after him, and she waves to him. And I had to say, like, me and a couple people at the same moment were all like, yo, if Ned starts making out with MJ, I would have been like, son. And I was like, but I realized me and everyone else, I thought that we're just wounded souls. That would have been a knife. I would have been like, oh.
Yeah. And I think
prison shank.
Yep.
It would have been right in the gut.
Yep, 100%.
underneath the ribs. That moment was also real cool, and it just shows the sharpness in the writing of the screenplay, which I will say that screenplay to me was probably the best of all the Marvel films that I've seen, in terms of an overall script and favoring the writing over favoring the formulaic visual palette of Marvel. Yeah. But that moment was also cool because he was just about to do it again, and then she pulled her hair back and he saw the bandage, and then that's what stopped him from pursuing even trying to rebuild or reestablish that communication, because seeing that bandage, it reminded him of how he got there in the first place, which is trying to have it both ways, trying to be Spider-Man and trying to be a boyfriend, a best friend, and live a normal life. And so we're left with the very last few moments of him, walking away from that and then going, like Cam said, on his own apartment, on all these things, and then choosing to continue on as Spider-Man, but knowing that that's all he's going to be able to do as of now, because he has to strike. He's now found that balance.
Yeah.
Until he figure out how to add it.
I think the beauty of it is they put him through it. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
of the Marvel movies that we've had thus far, removing Infinity War and Endgame off the board, because those are singular films. But in terms of like the standalones, I don't think there have been bigger stakes. I don't think there's been any bigger personal stakes in a Marvel film than this movie. And the reason why it works as well as it does is because you gave him stuff in the first two films and in Civil War, and you take it all away from him. Like he doesn't have any of it by the time you get to the end of this movie.
Yeah. And that's the part that actually reinforces it, because there's a good moment where he's like really, really broken, and the other two Peters show up and they kind of just share the same thing. They're like, yo, I lost Uncle Ben. I lost Aunt May. These are the things that happen. And then like, I got revenge and it didn't help me. So we're trying to let you know, as a similar dude, what you thinking right now. I've been there, but don't do it.
Let me add on this. In the whole Spider-Verse, in every incantation we've seen in the current Marvel universe of Spider-Man, the world's at balance when Peter Parker is unhappy or doesn't have a perfect world. When Peter wants it perfect, things never go right. But when Peter's unhappy, everything else is in balance. And it's been like that since the comics. In order for this to work, Peter cannot find the 100% resolution. So he has to be content with like, okay, no one's who I am, so I have to lose MJ, or I got to lose this, or I got to lose Aunt May. Because if these things don't happen, then the world as a whole, it's the selfish versus the greater good of humanity. Does Peter want to be happy, or does the world need to be saved? He's got to choose. And like you said, you can't be a halfway gangster. You can't be college kid and Spider-Man. You got to choose one. And so for his own emotional stability, he has to choose whether to be the hero that he needs to be, or preserve his own selfish reasoning and be like, I want my love of my life, but at cost of all this. It's been that arc for every Spider-Man.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the central theme of Spider-Man has always been the line that we always get, which is with great power comes great responsibility. And so in every version, there's a sacrifice. There's something that he has to give up, or something that he loses in order to, like can't put it perfectly, in order for his world to balance. He has to make those sacrifices in order for everything else to fall into place.
Yeah, and I think that it's what you see is that only what makes that character special is that he's willing to do it. He was willing to, after he sees the bandage, walk out of MJ and Ned's life for good, knowing that even though it hurts him, but it's going to mean that they don't. Obviously, we're talking about a world where aliens fall from the sky. At any moment, whether Spider-Man there or not, MJ and Ned can get swept up and carried off into the nether world. So we're just going off the base ground level that he's like, at least if I'm not in their life, that minimizes that extraordinary threat of death or destruction for them. However he wants to make it make sense to himself. But they definitely, and I think what I've enjoyed mostly about this trilogy is that it's been and I keep saying trilogy because for me it felt like a whole trilogy. Like that film felt like the cap off of a beginning, middle, and end arc but also of a hero's journey, a coming of age journey that started in Civil War and ended, carried over through Infinity War and Endgame, and then crescendoed in Homecoming, Far, Far Away, and No Way Home. And that's why I think, to me, it's the best written story arc in the Marvel Cinematic Universe overall, that started with purpose and ended and fulfilled that purpose.
Yeah, definitely. And they did a really good job of just like letting that character grow. Like you said, from Civil War, we was kind of just like, hey, what's going on, to having real stakes, to actually manning up and taking responsibility when certain things happen. And then also trying to figure things out with his friends and all that. The last thing I would say is the use of Doctor Strange in this was really, really good. And they did a good job of not making it a team up movie, but Strange was there. They took him off the board quickly, but the way they did it was good. The folding when they were back when they were in the mirror verse again, and it looked fresh. It didn't look like they just pulled it from the last movie, but they looked at some interesting stuff on it.
Yeah.
There's a great bit where you see Wong, and then Wong is now the Sorcerer Supreme, And then Holland's like, wait, I thought you're the Sorcerer Supreme. He's like, well, there's a technicality because I was gone for 5 years, so they have to have another one. So Wong was the one that's to get to do it. So I thought that was dope. And even
wait, did you just confirm there's the Doctor Strange and this one is the evil Doctor Strange?
No, I'll get to that part. But because the Doctor Strange was a part of the blip, Wong became the Sorcerer Supreme for the 5 years that he was gone. And so technically, Wong is still Sorcerer Supreme, which is hilarious. And then the reason why everything was all cold, which I thought was also good, was one of the portals they opened up is to Siberia, and then the whole cold came in. They couldn't close it. That's why there was all that snow, which I thought that was pretty funny.
That was hilarious.
And then the last roundup for Doctor Strange is so the ending credit scene. One was Tom Hardy and Venom, which was dope. And then the ending credit, the last one, instead of being an ending scene, they actually dropped the trailer for Doctor Strange in the
Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, and it was dope. Like it was, and I actually liked it that way because it was kind of like, okay, you'll see Doctor Strange next in, and then boom, they dropped the full trailer. They had a bunch of good bits for the fanboys. They had good nods to like WandaVision. They had good, so I thought they did a good job. And then to your credit of the Dark Doctor Strange, the main baddie for Madness in the Multiverse is Doctor Strange.
Well, it's two. It's Mordo and
Mordo as well.
Yeah,
and so it was dope.
Nazi Dreadlock Mordo.
I still got my fingers crossed that Mephisto is lurking in the background, but that's just
you and like a hell of other fanboys want Mephisto to come out of the woodwork.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, though. If he did come out the woodwork out of nowhere, it would be on brand.
Yeah,
like it would totally work. Like if he just popped out, like, "Hey, what's going on, guys?" Like that would totally be on brand. And
but also, we know he wouldn't be the main antagonist of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness because Mephisto is more like Avengers level type of threat. Obviously, Doctor Strange has battled him and all that stuff, but he's a interdimensional entity. So it would take a lot more heavies than just Strange himself.
All I'm gonna say is bring back the real Hulk and not this version of Hulk. That's all I ask
for. I concur. I second that motion.
They'll probably bring Amadeus Cho Hulk if anything. If they talk about a real one, I can see it. I can see it. Keep the third eye open, man.
Heavy caping, boy.
Yo, it can be Asian Hulk, Asian woman Wolverine. It's coming. I give them 10 years. You'll see. They got to check all their boxes, dude. That's why.
That's true.
And so in the
diversity boxes.
Yep, in the Doctor Strange trailer, they had a nod to America Chavez, who is like multi-dimensional character in the book, and like she like literally checks all the boxes. She's Latina, she's a woman, she's queer, and so she can punch holes in the multiverse. And so they're gonna have a lot of fun with that. Just in her, I'm curious to see how they introduce her and what they do with her. But
she gonna figure heavily from what I read.
Yeah. So, but yeah, overall, man, Spider-Man, they did it. Every time we say Marvel's like, you guys lost a couple steps, we'll see what happens, and then they brought it home this year after a bunch of like okay mid-tier movies this year.
Yeah. So I guess the question that comes to mind is how do we rate individually? How do we rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm gonna say
I'll go first. No, for right now.
I made it easy.
Sage, get your daddies. Sage, get him.
Hey, I made it easy.
You know what? I'm gonna give it a 10, and I'll put it top 5. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't rewatched.
Once I watch this, we're gonna have a debate. It was just top 10. All right, for sure.
Yeah, I'll put it. It's definitely top tier MCU for sure. Mm-hmm. It's definitely the best Marvel movie this year, easily. That's not even a question. But I would say, I'm gonna put it top 5, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna give it a 10. I like in terms of story, heart, action, comedy, nods to the next stuff, good comic bits.
Direction,
and they did a good job. I think it could be a good contender as best trilogy of MCU. like a good argument to be made for all
over Captain America.
Over Captain America. Yeah,
Oh,
I think you could.
Yeah.
You can have a
easily.
You can have a good argument. I think. I would say arguably. They are saying easily. The only because I think the second one isn't as good as the other two, the 1 and 3. But at the same time, First Avenger is not as good as Homecoming. I don't think.
No, that's exactly what I was about.
This is better than this is better than Civil War, to be honest. But Winter Soldier is definitely better than Spider-Man second. So I can put Spider-Man above, and we all arguably agree that Captain America is the best trilogy so far. So I would say, Spider-Man would put is because I think Spider-Man beats it. That'll be mine. Josh.
For the same reasons, 10. Yep. I think it's stronger. So putting it up against the Captain America trilogy, it's definitely stronger. So Homecoming is definitely stronger than First Avenger. Far From Home is definitely, I wouldn't say it's on par. I wouldn't even begin to say that it's on par with Winter Soldier, but definitely No Way Home. I don't want to say it beats it beats Winter Soldier, because Winter Soldier is probably still my number one, but it's definitely tied at this point. It's tied, and nothing else for the individual movies, not counting Infinity War and
Endgame.
And Endgame. For the individual films, I would say it's at least on par with Winter Soldier in terms of quality, in terms of writing, in terms of directing, in terms of action, in terms of stakes. The characters, coming into the movie one way and leaving another. Then the main character is not the same from the beginning of the trilogy to the end of this to the end of it. From the beginning of this last movie to the end of it, the character is not the same person. So 10, rock solid 10. Easily best written film of in the MCU era. D?
Nope. D?
Everything that everybody said. I think I give the film itself 9.5 out of 10, just because 10 out of 10, that just seems impossible to achieve for anything.
He doesn't give out 10s.
Not to these guys. And I would have gave it a 15.
And Angelo does not give out 10.
I don't throw 10s out there, but if there's a movie in the MCU that I would give a 10, it would be No Way Home. That's why I would give it as close to the thing of the 10 that I would, which is a 9.5. I think I would go ahead and say that overall, from a narrative perspective, it's better than the Captain America trilogy. From an action-driven excitement, I don't know. They probably neck and neck with Captain America, slightly above the Spider-Man trilogy. But I agree with what everybody said, and that Homecoming is better than First Avenger. I think Winter Soldier is definitely better than Far From Home, and No Way Home is definitely better than Civil War. I believe that No Way Home is a better written film than Winter Soldier. That's just, I could go into more detail, but I'll just leave it at that. Since we're not really talking about Winter Soldier, but I do think that it's definitely hard to knock Winter Soldier off of where it is, because it is such an excellent film. But definitely there's only two really good trilogies in the MCU of all of its 20, 30, close to 30 movies, and that is the Spider-Man Home trilogy and the Captain America trilogy. And again, Spider-Man is a little better because the journey was a little more holistic. I think the journey was also a little bit more meaningful with bigger personal stakes than what it was with Steve Rogers' character. So that's my take. 9 out of 5 for the film itself, No Way Home. 10 out of 10 for the 3 movies that combine to make the trilogy. And it is definitely No Way Home to me is the best written Marvel film, period. And that trilogy is probably up there over all the other ones because it's the most complete.
Yeah, nah, that's dope, man. That's dope.
Quick question before we cut. Okay, movies included in all Marvel since the Renaissance of Marvel come back.
Oh, jeez.
Top Marvel thing. I already know my answer. It's Loki. Loki's the best thing Marvel's done out of all this stuff. I love that. So, like, Marvel's done some dope stuff. I'm like, all right, it's cool, this, that, and that. But Loki, the show, top tier. I ain't never been hyped on a Marvel idea.
Yeah,
and what if to me was a close second for the example? Maybe one episode faltered, but what if
Thor episode?
I liked it, but
wait, are we talking Marvel in general?
Marvel in general,
and film
in the Renaissance period. So Blade is the jump off, post Blade era.
So all right, so anything TV and movies, I would put Loki's up there. What's funny is again, Hawkeye is a boring ass character, but like this show is a lot better than I thought it was. So it's creeping up there for me in general. I would say. Yeah, Loki's definitely one that like I think pushed Marvel to on a TV aspect to be a lot better than they were before. I think like and Hawkeye's kind of following the similar thing. I definitely put No Way Home. I would definitely put Winter Soldier. What If was really good in terms of like their execution in it. I was really impressed that they went there, which in some of those parts. But yeah, I don't know. I mean,
a topic for another discussion. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, because
we gotta think about that.
That's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, off top for me, I would say What If. What If had my stomach hurting. Like I felt What If the especially the end cap, the 2-part end cap. I felt that in my gut.
Yeah,
like it really made you feel that your fictional heroes were in peril, and you didn't know whether or not who was going to live, who was going to die, who was going to be a turncoat, whether they were going to pull it out.
Is that the criteria? Is that the criteria? Because
well, that's my criteria.
Okay, because I was just
my stomach hurt.
Okay, because I would say like I don't. Yeah, that's a rabbit hole because I wouldn't consider anything. I would consider probably the only newer thing that Marvel has done in the last couple years that I would consider like top would be a few of the movies, Loki. Loki
is second for me, and then probably Falcon and Winter Soldier is probably third.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Well, hold on before we get to that rabbit hole. Don't punch somebody in the throat. Just a second. We'll be back. Now, so we'll, you know what? We'll do that for a future pod. Hawkeye is rapping. We're gonna do a recap of Hawkeye, and then also we'll come back and we'll kind of do a Marvel wrap up of like what we think is top tier, and we'll include movies and TV shows. And that, you know what? Now we'll even, because we're doing that and we're starting with, so we'll say that's the criteria. We start from Blade. We can even add in things like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and some of the fake X-Men stuff, but just have a far-reaching conversation about all the Marvel top properties, TV and film, and where do we see is that top tier, what's that low tier, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, should I recuse myself for the X-Men conversation?
Is that post Blade? Right?
Yeah, it's post Blade.
Okay.
Yeah, X-Men came out
to eviscerate X-Men.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to. Yeah, man. We can do all that.
So I got homework. I got to see No Way Home, and I got to watch Hawkeye.
Yeah. We'll come back and we're gonna do a recap of Hawkeye, all the episodes, finales coming up, and then we'll do a separate one where we talk about all the Marvel stuffs and go from there. You got your you're the last one left, and D'Angelo, you can say one more thing.
Because we did not talk about the big cameo in that movie. Like there was a really cool cameo in that movie, and we didn't discuss it at all.
You're right. There was probably one of the best cameos I've seen in the MCU. When Holland is in trouble, they're sitting in the kitchen and they cut to their lawyer, Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil.
Oh,
yeah.
Yep. pretty much.
And he displayed a little Daredevil abilities very naturally.
Yeah, it was dope. It was dope. That was a good. And his team was like 5 minutes, and they
barely.
And
what's funny is there was so much that happened in that movie, you almost forget that he was in it, and it was really good. It's not like it was something that was just like a throwaway, and you just like, oh, whatever. Charlie Cox popped up.
Yep,
whatever.
Exactly.
Nah, it was really, really good, perfectly placed, and caught you out there the whole bit. And it was just a really good piece in a movie that had a bunch of great pieces in it.
Yeah. It was jam-packed.
So this is why Charlie Cox was on my damn timeline the whole day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering why he was popping up.
He's back, or at least for that moment, he was back.
And it made sense, too, because that's kind of the case that he would take as Matt Murdock. Like, you know.
Please bring back Punisher. Please bring back Punisher.
And so, well, again, those are those things where it's like, you know, someone like we'll talk about this with Hawkeye, but what I liked about Hawkeye is that ground level that Punisher and Daredevil brought, like less suit and capes, less aliens, and you know all these powers, but just regular old people trying to do regular old things and be good. And so
bring back the hallway fight scene again.
Yeah, Charlie Cox showed up, and it was good because he was there as Matt Murdock, just being himself, and then a rock comes through the window. And Matt Murdock, again blind, catches it behind his back, and then and they're just like, what did you say?
He catches it, and Peter also, his reflexes being on par with Daredevil's. They both put their hands up to catch it.
They both touch it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. They both put their hand up to catch it, but Daredevil catches it. I mean, Charlie Cox catches it first, which is hilarious.
And he's like, what are you again? He's like, oh, I'm just a good lawyer.
I'm just a good lawyer. I like that. It sets up, you know, showing how Feige is going to try to introduce the former Netflix people possibly into you. So that was to me really, really good because it doesn't need a lot of pomp and circumstances.
Nope.
And the moral of the story is actors are liars because Andrew Garfield was hard body. I am not in No Way Home. No, stop asking me these stupid questions. No, I'm not in it. Just all kind of attitude, and he is very much in this thing. Charlie Cox, same deal, was like, yo, listen, I don't want to jeopardize the bag. They might have me come in later, but I am not in No Way Home. Y'all need to stop asking me because my answer is not going to change. I wasn't in it. I was never on set. Like, he went into this whole elaborate thing.
You know what? I actually appreciate that because in the age of social media and rumors and everything else, Marvel still can kind of keep things under wraps. And
that is true, but they're also liars.
Yes.
But also, and you know what? I like it because I'm like, dude, sometimes you can wait till the movie comes out.
Yep, you can always wait until
the freaking movie comes out.
Exactly. So I think that
you can absolutely wait.
And so I'm glad that in the age of social media and the internet, we can still have some type of specials and some type
of
liars. Surprise. They are liars. All of them.
But also.
But yeah. So yeah, man, that's our recap of Spidey. We all loved it. Cam gave it a 0, but he hasn't watched it yet. So he'll come back and score.
Yeah, they got Charlie Cox in it, so might have to give it 9.5. So I'm on the boat now. So.
Yeah, Cam ain't on it.
It's currently sitting at what, a 9.7?
Yes, because of Cam 0. So, but yeah. So once again, it's Table of Truth, Blerdlines, and we out.
Peace, Spider-Man. Spider-Man.
Do.